Hey everybody, what's up? I want to get back to my iPhone's going. I have one of those big extender things coming off the music stand. But anyways, I want to get back to answering some questions we had. I have several Q&As. I was doing a lot several months back, and just a new addition to the channel. And a lot of you guys were digging it. So another question I had, and I didn't write down your name. I don't remember where I saw it. If it was in an email or on one of the other Q&As as a question. But wanted to know my opinion on Glenn Tipton and 𝐂𝐂 Downing versus or Dave Murray and Adrian Smith. So Judas Priest versus Iron Maiden. And you know, I like doing these Q&As because for me it's a time to reflect on a time in my life when I started playing in the 80s. It doesn't mean there's not really a wrong answer. It's more so just my opinion on who affected me more and what do I think about Priest and Maiden as far as the two guitar player combo. Of course, Maiden, you know, for many, many years now has had 3 players. I'm more into the 2-player Maiden back in the 80s. So let's start with Judas Priest, Glenn Tipton and 𝐂𝐂 Downing. You know, me being a guitar player that started taking guitar serious in, I'd say, probably 82. Obviously metal and MTV, I mean, that was it. That's what came out at that time, and I wouldn't change it for the world because it was really the era of technical players, melodic players, just a great time to grow up playing guitar. So obviously I'm influenced by, you know, pretty much all the metal bands back then. So for me, I'm just going to get this one out of the way really quick. I was more of a Glenn Tipton guy than a 𝐂𝐂 Downing guy. And it's not to knock 𝐂𝐂 Downing at all. I think as a package, they were great together. Tipton was, to me, more of the shred element came from Tipton. And not that 𝐂𝐂 couldn't do that. You know, he was a good player too. But I liked Glenn Tipton's style more than 𝐂𝐂 Downing. Man, it just takes me back. I remember listening to the US Festival, and Priest was just, you think of metal, you're thinking of bands like Priest and Maiden and 𝐂𝐍𝐒. But when they would go together and do their harmonies, I mean, just a really cool thing. So now let's bump it over to Maiden. Out of the 2 bands, and I'm just going to stick with 80s in this because they still play to this day. But there's member changes and this and that. So back in the 80s, you know, I would go with I'd probably, actually 100% leaned more towards Iron Maiden. I just loved the package, you know. Maybe it was because I'm a drummer and a bass player too, and you got Steve Harris, who was always voted the #1 bass player, you know, back in the 80s, in Circus Magazine, Hit Parader, you know, him and Geddy Lee, and and Nico McBrain, the drummer, I've always been a big fan of his playing, where with Priest, the drums were just more kind of basic, and the bass was more basic. It was more about Halford and his amazing voice, and Tipton and Downing. That's how I view it. With Maiden, every single player I would love to listen to, you know, whether it was Nico's drum roll, the way he would just loved his style. As far as players, this one's a little tougher for me to answer as far as who I like better, Adrian Smith or Dave Murray. I think a lot of people tend to go with Dave Murray. I'm going to lean more towards Adrian Smith. I felt like he had more of an abstract style. Equally as players, man, they were probably matched from a technical level the same. But I really thought Adrian Smith just had this really kind of out-of-the-box style to his soloing and playing. And I love how Maiden would, obviously their harmonies. I think out of all the metal bands, Maiden is at the top of the list, like #1 for the dual, you know, melody harmonies together. I just did a lesson on, what was it? Aces High. But you can go on and on. You know, the Trooper, the way they harmonize together, they just picked the perfect harmonies that were usually pretty close, like the melody and then the third with it, and gives you this tight, compact, you know, really cool harmony. So Adrian Smith, would have the edge with me a little bit over Dave Murray. Dave Murray had those real fast hammer-on pull-offs. I always liked how Maiden, with their solos, most of the time would switch to the bridge pickup to give that deeper bottom-end warm sound. You know what I'm talking about. But I just think fabulous. You know, you listen to, I remember when the Hearing Aid Project came out. Remember that? Ronnie Dio and Vivian Campbell had started that. And, you know, they brought in all the different singers just to do one song, and then all these shred guitar players. And if you haven't heard it, man, you've got to, I ended up buying it years ago. I have it on DVD. But now, you know, today with YouTube, you can find pretty much anything right here. Killer song, you know, a singer would take a line and then in the verse, and then another singer. You'd have Halford, you'd have Paul Shortino from Rough Cut, and then Kevin DuBrow, and, you know, on and on. Jeff Tate. Didn't have Bruce Dickinson. I don't know why. That would have been really cool. But the song's called We're Stars. And then when it comes down into the solo section, talk about a kid in a candy store. That was the most beautiful thing for a player like me, to hear all my favorite guitar players, most of them. Didn't have Matthias from the Scorpions. That would have been cool. But, you know, you had Malmsteen and Neil Schon, Brad Gillis, George Lynch, who else? Craig Goldie, Vivian Campbell. But then when it came to Iron Maiden, rather than then play like a separate individual solo, in true classic metal Maiden style, they did a harmony melody lead together. And it really wasn't a shred solo, it was melodic. That's their trademark, man, with Maiden. And they can shred too. But if you haven't heard it, man, go listen to it. Or if you hadn't heard it for a while, you can find it on YouTube. We're Stars from the Hearing Aid Project. So there you go. There's my 2 cents for what it's worth. I lean towards Iron Maiden over Judas Priest. And I lean towards Adrian Smith over Dave Murray. With Priest, I lean more towards Glenn Tipton than 𝐂𝐄 Downing. That kind of sums it up in a nutshell. There's, you know, Screaming for Vengeance, that album from Priest. Man, I hold that right up there. Pretty close with the best Maiden album. That was just a killer album. So was it Defenders of the Faith? That had Turbo Lover and all that. And you can hear Tipton kind of expand a little bit in the technicality level a little more. That's just how I viewed it. But Adrian Smith, I'm probably going to get a lot of different opinions from you guys. But that's what it is. It's an opinion. It's not that Mike's right and you're wrong. Give me your opinion. What do you guys think? For me, it's Maiden first, then Priest. But it's close. It's so close. I think Maiden was more consistent with better albums than Priest was as well, too. In the 80s. You know what I mean? I kind of stopped following as much in the 90s. You know, life, family, playing in bands, everything taken over. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. Add me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, now's the time to subscribe. Keep your Q&As coming, because you never know. I may pick yours next. And I'm sorry I didn't get the name for the person that was asking my opinion, but we're going to throw these up every once in a while. All right? Keep rocking, guys. See ya.